You are listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is Wednesday evening. This is Scotty Roberts. You're listening to the Intrepid radio program right here on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com. And you can watch the, of course, the simulcast video stream over on my YouTube channel, which is Mr. Scotty Roberts. And I say that every day. It's become almost rote. It just flows out of my mouth now. So hopefully I'm not making any mistakes with that as I fumble through it without even thinking. So thank you for joining me tonight. I appreciate your presence here. I appreciate your followership. All of those of you who listen on the radio and over at iHeartRadio and Spreaker and iTunes. And I'm not sure which ones yet. One of these days I'm going to fulfill my presidential promise and provide you a list of the terrestrial stations where Odyssey Radio plays, and you can pick up this stream there, locally in your own neighborhoods. So that's where you listen to us audibly, and of course, you can always join the YouTube channel. And if you're not subscribed, please come over and subscribe. One of the benefits of watching the simulcast on YouTube is that you can join the live chat that's always going on every night. And you can commiserate with other listeners of this program. So come on over, indulge in that. And if you can't do that, certainly you can turn on the radio and hear us over at Odyssey Radio Network. So I want to, again, thank you for taking your time to come over to my channel and to come over and listen to my show. That means a lot to me. And many of you are people that followed me when I was with Rocky Stucci, and he and I did the Situation Room, and you came and followed my channel as a result of that, and I appreciate you being here. And Rocky Stucci and I should be on again tonight, right after this show, well, an hour after this show ends, for Rocky Stucci's Situation Room. So I'm so glad you're here, and I've said that several times already tonight, because it means a lot to me that you would take your time to be here. Now, with all those niceties out of the way, repeated several times, let's get into the meat of what we want to talk about. Last night, I started talking about impeachment, defining what it was by the government, trying not to lapse too political. You can talk about governmental issues, civics, things like that without being political. Tonight, I don't know, I might wax a little political, but I will try to keep from going overboard, because Odyssey Radio really isn't the overtly political channel or branch or sister station of Mojo 50. It is its own station, and it really focuses on things like science fiction, entertainment in the science fiction world, the paranormal, things like that. And I hope I've done enough of my shows on that to show that my heart is certainly there, my head is there. But I also have a lot to say about what's going on in our country around us. And Rocky Stucci and I try to get at that some days. We have a little ADHD radio going on over there, so sometimes we drift off into other topics. I have a tendency to rabbit trail as it is. That's just the way I talk. It's the way I converse. And I try to bring that same thing here to the show, only make it a little tighter and a little more cogent so you can pull some information out of it. So I want to pick up a little bit, not necessarily where we left off, but a little further into this whole idea. Idea is not the word. This whole current event that's going on around us now, that's playing out on the stage of government. And the rest of the world is watching what we do and how we do. We are supposed to be the freest, most independent nation in the world. And people are literally dying to get here. And our doors have been open for a long time for people to come here. Yes, there is a process. Yes, there are legalities you have to engage in order to become a citizen of this country. Even to come over here and just live for a while and work and experience it and apply for citizenship takes work. It's not like it used to be 200 years ago, 150 years ago, even 100 years ago. This nation has changed. The world has changed. The world has changed since 9/11. The world has changed dramatically. So there are different rules, there are different regulations in place. And that without even understanding everything about it, that right there should answer any questions anybody has about open borders and immigration. Times have changed, folks. Those of you who are pushing open borders, I think you're doing it just to win an audience. You're doing it to win a votership. You're doing it to get votes. You're making a stance like that because if you are a citizen of the United States and you're running for public office in this country, you can't, in good common sense, be pushing open borders. Period. Let's leave it at that because I want to talk about impeachment. Let's get back into impeachment. We were talking last night, and I've got some information up in front of me here, and I don't know that I need to really recap what the Constitution says. We went through that last night. The Constitution, in brief, gives the House of Representatives the sole power to impeach an official, and it makes the Senate the sole court for impeachment trials. So the power of impeachment is limited to removal from office, but also provides for a removed officer to be disqualified from holding any future office. So there's fines and potential jail time for crimes committed while in office, and those are left to the civil courts after an impeachment and a trial for impeachment. And so right now we're in the midst of the House of Representatives attempting to impeach the president. And yes, that's exactly how I meant to phrase that. They're not attempting to investigate to see if impeachment is necessary. They are attempting to impeach the president, and they are looking for ways to support their calls for impeachment. So, in a sense, it's a little backwards. They don't have all the facts and evidence in front of them. They have what they consider to be their own, they're convinced of their own proofs, and what they need to do is put that out legally so they can legally take a vote to impeach. Doesn't matter. Really, what it comes down to is it doesn't matter. They could take a vote this afternoon, tomorrow morning, next week. They could vote. All they need are the numbers right now and a stated reason. And they can vote to indict the sitting president of the United States and impeach him. And that's really all impeachment is. It's not removal from office. As a matter of fact, if the House impeaches President Trump, he retains his full presidential powers, but he is now, in a sense, indicted, and he has to go in front of the Senate, who holds the trial, to determine whether or not that impeachment merits his being taken out of office. And so what you are going to see is a lot of partisan politics right now. First of all, this host does not believe Donald Trump stands in any sort of criminal light, that he should not be impeached for the reasons that the House are trumping up. And as I mentioned yesterday, and as we're going to go through a little bit tonight, everything that they have done, that they have presented over the last 3 years, was an attempt to remove him from office. The Mueller hearings, the Mueller report, several different attempts at filing for impeachment. This has been done since day one of Donald Trump's presidency, and it hasn't worked. Now they've got something they think is going to work, and they have, and you can tell. Number one, they changed the rules of what a whistleblower can present. The rules used to state a whistleblower had to be a first-hand witness to what he was reporting or whistleblowing. Now, just a few weeks back, the House changed that rule. You can now be second or third-hand witnesses. And they voted that into play, into the rules. They changed the rules. They had the votes in the House to do it because they have the majority of the House. So what happens a few weeks later? A whistleblower comes out. And he comes out with the most sophisticated legalese ever seen in a whistleblowing report. It was written by lawyers. It was written probably with the hand of some of the House representatives in it, and that are seeking impeachment. This is all very orchestrated, folks, this whistleblowing event. And so now Trump has released the whistleblower's report. He's released, I'm sorry, not the whistleblower's report, the phone call that the whistleblower, and we all know this already, I'm just recapping, and we found that depending on what side of the issue you sit on, you can interpret that your given way. What Donald Trump said on that phone call, fairly innocuous stuff. He was not pressuring, he was not fighting against a political opponent for the elections, as in Joe Biden. He was fulfilling what he said he was going to do. And if this were a sole event in the Trump presidency, you might be able to infer that. But he's been doing this all the way along. He has been pushing to have different officials, different people. Draining the swamp was one of his taglines at the end of the election. And that's what he intended to do, drain the swamp of corruption. And part of that corruption was what he asked the Ukrainian president to look into. And he asked it as a favor. And there were other things talked about in that conversation. So you can see, you start looking at it, just take a step outside the box and look back in. This was all manufactured. This is a manufactured crisis, which the Democrats' own words for the border several months back. So let's go on into this a little bit and break this down just to give you an idea. I've got in front of me some information about all the efforts that have been put to play to impeach President Donald Trump. Now, various people and groups assert that the U.S. President Donald Trump has engaged in impeachable activity, both before and during his presidency. So when they talk of impeachment, that began before he took office. So the formal efforts were initiated by Representative Al Green. You've seen him on television. He's kind of a pissy guy that stands up there and really wants to have this done. This is the sole purpose he exists right now in the House of Representatives, is to get this accomplished. That's his mission in life. And Brad Sherman. And both are Democrats. And in 2017, the first year of Donald Trump's presidency, is when they first started introducing articles of impeachment. And they want to vote on starting impeachment hearings. And on September 24th of 2019, the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, just about a month ago, announced that 6 committees would undertake formal impeachment inquiries. I'm sorry, not 6 weeks ago, just about 2 weeks ago. She announced that 6 committees would undertake formal impeachment inquiries after reports about controversial interactions, and I put my finger quotes in the air, between Trump and the country of Ukraine. And so grounds that were asserted for impeachment have included possible violations of the Foreign Emoluments Clause. Now, you've heard Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in days past. She's been pretty quiet lately, if you notice. She's dropped in importance. And I noticed that happened after her chief of staff resigned. But Foreign Emoluments Clause, and she talked about this a lot. This comes from the Title of Nobility Clause, and it's a provision in Article 1, Section 9, Clause 8 of the Constitution. And it prohibits the federal government from granting titles of nobility, and it restricts members of the government from receiving gifts, emoluments, or offices from foreign states. And so this is what they're trying to nail on Trump. If you can think of anything off the top of your head where he has violated that, you'd probably be one in a million that could come up with that. So the emoluments clause of the Constitution. This is one of the grounds that's inserted for impeachment. Possible violations of the emoluments clause. This is and specifically with Trump, they say it's because he accepted payments from foreign dignitaries, which, by the way, those payments, you know what they were? Foreign dignitaries staying at a hotel that he owns. And so they're saying this is an emoluments violation. Alleged collusion with Russia, which is found to not exist at all during the campaign for the 2016 United States presidential election. That's what the Mueller report was all about. Alleged obstruction of justice with respect to investigation of the collusion claim. And accusations of associating the presidency with white nationalism, neo-Nazism, and hatred, which formed the basis of a resolution for impeachment brought in December 6th of 2017. All of which are absolute nonsense. I have good friends who claim that Trump is a white supremacist, that he's a neo-Nazi, that he hates the little brown peoples of the world. And it's just not so. I have also, by the way, people have labeled me a white supremacist and a Nazi. Excuse me? I'm about as far away from a Nazi as you can get. Far away from a white supremacist as you can get. Just because I'm white doesn't mean I'm a white supremacist. Nor does it mean that I kowtow to political correctness. I don't give a flying rat's ass about some of this racial stuff, racial hatred stuff. Everybody wants to argue about that, and everybody wants to start labeling somebody else. You can see, if you look back and you backdate all this stuff, you can see where a lot of this started. I remember the first time I heard the word racist coming on official levels was when there were senators or legislators that disagreed with the Obama administration policies. And what the Obama administration found they could do is call these people racist. Oh, you're just against it because it's a black president. And that would have to stop in the tracks anybody who stood against his policy to explain why they weren't racist. Well, I'm not racist. Well, now then you get the argument coming back, well, you're racist just because you claim you're not racist. And it's just this, it's the whole invisible purple dinosaur floating in my garage argument. You've heard that one before? Carl Sagan put this forward, and it was more based on skepticism and science and things like that, where somebody comes out and says, I have a purple dinosaur in my garage. Dragon it is, not dinosaur. I have a purple dragon in my garage. And the person says, oh, really? Let me see him. Oh, well, my purple dragon is invisible, so you can't see him. Oh, well, why don't we put some powder on the floor and we'll be able to see his footprints? Well, my purple dragon, who is invisible, also floats, so you won't see his footprints. Oh, okay, well, let's do, and so on the argument goes. So every time there is a cogent argument or question that is brought forward for this racism bullshit, you suddenly have to come up with another answer because another version of the question tries to derail anything you can say. So the argument obviously has to stand, you're a Nazi, a white supremacist, and a racist. There I've rabbit trailed on that. Enough of that. What a bunch of bullshit and nonsense. But let's move on. I'm not getting political on my show. So that was, by the way, the basis for the December 6, 2017 resolution for impeachment that was brought. Now, since the Republicans controlled both the House and the Senate during 2017 and in 2018, the likelihood of impeachment during that period was considered to be very low. And so December 2017, the resolution of impeachment failed in the House. Here's the margin by which it failed. 58 for, 364 against. So the Democrats gained control of the House in 2019, and they launched multiple investigations into Trump's actions and finances. What's the first thing the House does when it gains a Democrat control? It's trying to find ways to delegitimize and remove the sitting president, all dating back to the fact that they lost the last election. So the Democrats gained control of the House. They launched their multiple investigations into Trump, his actions, his finances. Speaker Nancy Pelosi initially publicly resisted calls for impeachment. And in May of 2019, she indicated that Trump's continued actions, which she characterized as obstruction of justice and refusal to honor congressional subpoenas, might make an impeachment inquiry necessary. And so an increasing number of House Democrats and one Republican who left the Republican Party were requesting such an inquiry. And so in December of 2016, Democrat Senators Elizabeth Warren, who's now running for president, should she be making any call for Donald Trump's impeachment, since she is running against him in the upcoming elections next year? Wouldn't that be like Donald Trump, according to them, asking for an investigation into Joe Biden? Let's move that on. So is Elizabeth Warren, Dick Durbin, Chris Coons, Ben Cardin, Jeff Merkley, these people all introduced a bill that would require the President of the United States to divest any assets that could raise a conflict of interest. So in other words, you were a businessman for 70 years of your life, 50 years, since he was a kid. And now you need to divest yourself of all of that. So you no longer own any businesses and you can be a United States president. Can't just put them on hold till when you're done being president and you can pick up. You got to divest yourself of your assets. That would constitute high crimes and misdemeanors under the impeachment clause of the U.S. Constitution. So Vanity Fair, that great political machine out there, magazine, characterized this as a preemptive effort to lay the groundwork for a future impeachment argument. So concerns had previously been expressed that Trump's extensive business and real estate dealings, especially with the respect to governmental agencies in other countries, might just violate the Foreign Emollients Clause of the Constitution, and it sparked debate as to whether that's the case. So, because the man had a business prior to becoming president, his whole business wasn't being in politics his whole life. He did something else. He made something of his life financially, and now they're trying to hold that against him as the president. So immediately after his inauguration, January 20th of 2017, the Independent and the Washington Post each reported on efforts already underway to impeach him. He was president for a day, and they were already launching efforts to impeach the president, based on what the organizations regard as conflict of interests arising from Trump's ability to use his political position to promote the interests of Trump-branded businesses and ongoing payments by foreign entities to businessmen within the Trump business empire as a violation of the Foreign Emoluments Clause. So in essence, what you've got here is a successful business person could never become president if their name as the president of the United States of America will somehow benefit their company later on. Let me ask you, does Obama, having been the president of the United States, does he benefit out there in business because he was once the president of the United States? Does Bill Clinton? Does George W. Bush? Does any former president benefit because they were once the president of the United States in business? Ask yourself that question. So in March of 2017, China provisionally granted 38 Trump trademark applications, set to take permanent effect in 90 days, which were noted to come in close proximity to the president's making policy decisions favorable to China. So you look at China and you tell me, we'll talk about that in a little bit, after we have to come back from this break. You look at that and see if Trump has violated, if you believe he's violated anything with China because he was doing business with them before. You look at his position with China now. That's all you need to do. Enough said. We got to go out to break. 2 minutes, I'll be back, and we'll pick this up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back from that break. You're listening to me, Scotty Roberts, here on the Intrepid radio program on the Odyssey Radio Network. That's ODYSY1.com. To go listen to the audio, you can join the live simulcast stream over on my YouTube channel. That's Mr. Scotty Roberts, once you get to YouTube. And join the chat room that's going on there. There's a live and lively, might I say, chat room going on while this show is playing over there. So thank you for being here. Appreciate your presence here. Let's pick this up where we went off. We were talking about China and how they were trying to say that Trump was in violation of the Foreign Emoluments Clause because of his dealings with China and his trademark applications that were set to take permanent effect. And they said it was too close in proximity to the president's making policy decisions that were favorable to China. I don't think he's made many policy decisions favorable to China. There is an embargo he had against China. There's a trade war that was started because he raised the tariffs. He said China needs to pay their fair share. So, anyway, you can see the nonsense in that. The Washington Post further noted that the creation of impeachdonaldtrumpnow.org by Free Speech for People and Roots Action, two liberal advocacy groups. This was acknowledged by the Washington Post. On February 9th, Congressman Jerry Nadler, who we're all too familiar with now, a Democrat from New York, filed a resolution of inquiry titled H-Con Res 5 to force the Trump administration to turn over documents relating to potential conflicts of interest and ties with Russia. So some sources identified this as the first step in the process of impeaching Trump. Remember, what we're doing tonight, we're going through the process of trying to impeach Donald Trump, which started before he even took office. So we're just recapping it all. Fox News outlined two potential bases for impeachment, one being the Emoluments Clause and the other being complicity with the Russian interference in the 2016 United States presidential election. And on March 21st, it was widely reported that Congresswoman Maxine Waters tweeted, "Get ready for impeachment," which Waters explained was in reference to the allegations of collusion with Russia and interference in the election. And then you had not just Jerry Nadler, but, and it'll come up here, Adam Schiff, claiming he believed Donald Trump was an acting Russian agent. Ooh. Secret agent man right in the Oval Office. So on January 17th of 2019, this year, new accusations involving Trump surfaced, claiming he instructed his longtime lawyer, Michael Cohen, to lie under oath surrounding Trump's involvement with the Russian government to erect a Trump Tower in Moscow. So this also sparked calls for an investigation and for the president to resign or be impeached, should such claims be proven genuine. So now you already seeing it? It's a layer cake. Layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of impeachment charges. Charges to impeach based on wrongdoings of Trump. And this is all put out in the public mind. So what do the mindless idiots out there, the TDSers, the Trump derangement syndrome people, the people who constantly you see in social media calling Trump the big orange piece of lard or that piece of shit in office and so on. These are people who couldn't debate their way politically or governmentally or civicsly out of a wet friggin' paper bag. But they've got the good names to call them. They got the barroom rhetoric down. They got the toilet writing on the wall for a good time, call President Trump. They got that all down pat. You try to get any intellectual substance out of these idiots, and you got nothing. But this is what all of this is starting to foster in the American public, especially those who believed that Donald Trump, they've been led to believe with that ring in the nose from the Democrats, come on this way, piggy, come on, suey, 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 impeachment, because Donald Trump is a bad man. Orange man bad. So the Mueller report was released April 18th of this year. Robert Mueller himself made follow-up comments on May 29th, and the report reached absolutely no conclusion about whether Trump had committed criminal obstruction of justice. And Mueller strongly hinted that it was up to the Congress to make such a determination, not him. So congressional support for an impeachment inquiry increased as a result. So once again, impeachment is brought in. I don't see I got to put a big caveat in, not even caveat, a parenthesis in here. The best way to get rid of Donald Trump is not the stupidity of impeachment, which has dragged on for 3 years already and is now going full bore. That's not the way to get rid of the sitting president. You know how to get rid of the sitting president? Vote him out. Do you know why the Democrats are doing this whole impeachment thing? Because they think it will benefit their party in the upcoming elections. When you know what? All it shows is that they ain't got shit to offer the American public. If the whole cornerstone of your political campaign and your call to have the nation's citizenry vote you or your candidate into office is based on trying to take somebody else down, you ain't got nothing. And so I have said, and I have meant it, I've said, look, I'm an independent. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I'm an independent. You convince me, I've said to Democrat friends, convince me that the Democratic Party has something better to offer to the citizenry of the United States that is constitutional, that will build this nation, and you'll win my vote. Until then, I have to stay conservative. And so far, the arguments I get, well, we're going to impeach Trump, and you'll see when we take office. No. That's like Nancy Pelosi in 2009 saying, vote for the Health Care Act, and then read it. That's not what we're going to do here. Democrats, the onus is on you to show me and other people in the country that you have something better to offer, that you have no corruption in your midst, that you are not engaging in wrongdoing behind the scenes. Show me your message is better than what you say you're fighting, and you might win me over. So far, I'm seeing a hell of a lot of far left far left-wing nuts going more towards socialism than they are trying to better our country. And don't get me wrong, some socialistic ideals are high and mighty humanistic ideals, and they're not that bad in the ideal stage of things. Implementing those in a constitutionally limited republic that is representative, you're going to have some problems. You got to find your way around that and make it work. So far, they're not doing that. So, a formal impeachment inquiry, the one we're in now, was launched just a couple of weeks ago, September 24th, 2019, as a response to the Trump-Ukraine controversy, in which Trump and his personal attorney, Rudy Giuliani, pressed the Ukrainian government repeatedly since at least May in 2019 to investigate Hunter Biden, the son of the 2020 presidential candidate, Joe Biden. We all know this already. We all know this. We all know that some of the language there is interpretive. They pressed him to seek dirt on his opponent's son. That's an interpretation. The purpose of the requested investigation was alleged to be to hurt Biden's campaign for president, according to the left, and according to those who now want to pursue impeachment on that basis. In July, Trump issued a hold on military aid scheduled to be sent to the Ukraine, releasing it instead in September after controversy arose. There was widespread speculation that the withholding of the aid was intended to force Ukraine to investigate Biden. Both Trump and Giuliani seem to confirm that there was a connection, but as of October 1st, which was just yesterday, out of a total of 433 incumbent members of the House, 225 Democrats and one independent are on the record as supporting the launch of an impeachment inquiry, which is greater than half. Now, this whole idea that Trump and Giuliani seemed to confirm that there was such a connection is again an interpretation. This is something they were already working on long before this thing. They were working on draining the swamp, finding the corruption, rooting it out. And this whole question of Biden and his son was at one of the things at the top of the list. And the foreign aid, why was Trump withholding foreign aid? It's as he told the Ukrainian president. He said, it's time that other countries step up and start paying their fair share of aid to the Ukraine, just like in other places in the world. The Ukraine is not the first place Trump has done this. Many times we've heard him say, what did he say was it to the UN or to NATO? He says, it's time, the European Union, it's time you step up and pay your fair share. The United States is not the world's grandpa that you go to and borrow money from or have them support you. This is all in that effort. But of course, it's going to be interpreted by whoever wants to try to use whatever material to either dislodge the presidency, discredit the president, versus those who say it's not that at all. So let's go through a little timeline here. We'll see if we have enough time to do this. We've got until... we've got quite a bit of time left. Let's see how much of this we get through. Here's a timeline for you. February of 2017. The Impeach Trump Leadership PAC was started by California Democrat Party. Congressional candidate Boyd Roberts. May 2017. Further information, dismissal of James Comey, the Comey memos, Donald Trump's disclosure of classified information to Russia, and special counsel investigation, which went from 2017 to 2019. Here are the actions and the revelations of that. Following Trump's dismissal of FBI Director James Comey, multiple Democratic members of Congress discussed an impeachment clock for Trump, saying that he was moving toward impeachment. He was raising the future possibility of bringing forth articles of impeachment for obstruction of justice and criminal malfeasance if proof of illegal activity were found. So now Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut stated in an interview, it may well produce another United States versus Nixon on a subpoena that went to the United States Supreme Court. And it may well launch the impeachment proceedings. Although we're very far away from that possibility, said Blumenthal. That was back in 2017. Later in May of 2017, Trump's disclosure of classified information to Russia led to further discussions about the possibility of impeachment. Now, do you know what that disclosure of the classified information was? On May 10th of 2017, Trump disclosed classified information to the Russian government representatives, creating political and security concerns in the United States and its allies, especially Israel. And here, I want to open this up because I want you all to hear this. This is what this was about, and this is going to rabbit trail us a bit. But soon after the meeting, the American intelligence extracted a high-level covert source from within the Russian government on concerns the individual could be at risk due, in part, to Trump and his administration repeatedly mishandling classified intelligence. Now, this is going to open up a whole nother can of worms beneath that. So, Trump discussed classified information provided by a U.S. ally regarding a planned Islamic State operation during an Oval Office meeting on May 10th of 2017 with the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov and the Russian Ambassador Sergei Kislyak provided sufficient details that could be used by the Russians to deduce the identity of the ally and the manner in which it was collected, according to current and former government officials. And the meeting had been closed to the U.S. press, although a photographer from the Russian press contingent was present. And so the disclosure was first reported in the Washington Post on May 15th of 2017. And the White House staff initially denied the report, but for the following day, Trump defended the disclosure, stating that he has the absolute right to share intelligence with Russia. And so it was later reported that Israel was the source of the information. Israel didn't confirm or deny the report, but released a statement stating full confidence in the intelligence sharing relationships with the United States. And on that goes, and on that goes, and on that goes, ad infinitum. And so the reactions to that, the U.S. Congress, the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, former Speaker of the House, thank goodness, said through a spokesman that he hopes for a full explanation of the facts from the administration. And it goes on. I'm not even going to get into that. You know why? It's minutia. So this is later in May, the news of Trump's disclosure of classified information led to further discussions about the possibility of impeachment, with Representative Maxine Waters, Democrat from California, in particular alluding to the possibility. And around the same time in May, the revelation that the president had asked Comey to drop the investigation of Michael Flynn led still more observers, including Senator Agnes King, an independent from Maine, to say that impeachment might be in the offing. And the developments led Senator John McCain, a Republican in Arizona, the late Senator McCain, to venture that matters had reached Watergate scope and size. And of course, we know all about the none too fond of type of relationship between Trump and McCain. So you see more layers being added on. Preparations for possible proceedings. Impeachment proceedings begin with a resolution being introduced at the House of Representatives. The first two representatives to publicly suggest an action were Pramila Jayapal, a Democrat from Washington, and Al Green, a Democrat from Texas. How come the Republicans weren't offering up any proposals for impeachment? So you can see this is all party stuff. It's all political game playing. Hashtag political game playing. Two Republican representatives, Justin Amash, a Republican from Michigan, Carlos Curbelo, a Republican from Florida, called for impeachment on the grounds that obstruction of justice charges against Trump were proven true. So Curbelo was defeated in his bid for re-election in 2018, but Amash was re-elected and, following his reading of the redacted Mueller report, reaffirmed his position, stating the evidence supported the conclusion that Trump had committed impeachable offenses. So on May 17th, Representative Al Green, made a call for impeachment on the House floor. And the House Oversight Committee Chairman Joseph Chavez, Republican from Utah, announced he was issuing subpoenas on the memo FBI Director James Comey wrote, detailing possible obstruction of justice by the president. On May 24th, Green told C-SPAN in an interview he was drafting articles of impeachment, and he would shortly submit them as a privileged resolution to begin the formal impeachment process. However, some major Democratic figures have stressed the need for caution, patience, bipartisanship in any political impeachment process, and that, whether they liked President Trump or not, was wise and the right move to make. They cautioned patience. They cautioned bipartisanship in any potential impeachment process. Because what you got right now, the only bipartisan you have in the current impeachment process is a couple of former Republicans who moved over to Democrat. Now, other than that, it's down party lines. So the administration officials have said that the White House lawyers are indeed researching impeachment proceedings and how to deal with them. The independent counsel, Robert Mueller, was appointed on May 17th of 2017 as special counsel by Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, and acting after the recusal of Attorney General Jeff Sessions to lead a special counsel investigation to investigate Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election and any cover-up related to it by Trump or any White House officials. So according to sources close to the White House, the Trump administration is considering using various obscure legal means to slow down the investigation and undermine the special counsel. So it was said back in 2017. Look, we're only up to 2017 on this layer cake of we're showing you exactly what took place in these efforts to impeach Trump. So now you get to June 2017. And you got former director James Comey agreed to testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee. And on June 8th, he did this. And some legal experts and politicians, such as Representative L. Swalwell of California, argued that Trump's numerous comments in news interviews and on Twitter regarding the subjects Comey would testify on, such as whether or not Trump tried to improperly influence or coerce Comey, and the reasons why Trump fired him, may well have voided the validity of an executive privilege claim in this instance. So, they're coming at it from every angle. We're still only up to June of 2017, a little over 2 years ago. On June 7th, an advance copy of Comey's prepared congressional testimony was submitted to the Senate Intelligence Committee, in which Comey said the president attempted to persuade him to let go of any investigation into Michael Flynn, who, by the way, got shafted. Look up the whole Michael Flynn story. and read through that again. Refresh your memory. He got the shaft. And now he added that Trump had requested his personal loyalty, to which Comey replied he would give his honest loyalty to the president. And now Comey said Trump on several occasions inquired whether there were an investigation into the president himself. Comey replied each time that there was not. And he goes on to state that Trump requested he publicly declare this so Trump's image could be improved. But Comey says he told the president he would need to have approval from the Attorney General's office for reasons of illegality. And Comey recounted his final conversation with President Trump on April 11th of 2017. And this is what he said. On the morning of April 11th, the president called me and asked me what I'd done about his request that I get out, that he is not personally under investigation, that I get that news out. I replied that I had passed his request to the acting deputy attorney general, but I had not heard back. He replied that the cloud was getting in the way of his ability to do his job. He said that perhaps, now by the way, this is Comey's testimony, that he would have his people reach out to the acting deputy attorney general. I said that was the way his request should be handled. I said the White House counsel should contact the leadership of DOJ to make the request, which was the traditional channel. He said he would do that, says Comey, because I've been very loyal to you, very loyal. We had that thing, you know, he says Trump said to him. I did not reply or ask him what he meant by that thing. I said only that the way to handle it was to have the White House counsel call the acting deputy attorney general. He said that was what he would do, and the call ended, and that was the last time I ever spoke with President Trump. That's what Comey had to say. Now, and I'm just presenting you the facts. I could go off on my own editorial on that. We'll leave that stand so I can get through this material. On June 7th, Congressman Al Green, once again, announced that Congressman Brad Sherman would join him in drafting articles of impeachment against President Trump. On June 12th, Sherman began circulating an article of impeachment. Among his colleagues, Sherman said, I'm not going to be deterred. Green stated, in the spirit of keeping the republic, I have concluded that the president has obstructed justice, and in so doing, the remedy for obstruction of justice is impeachment. The president will not be indicted while he is in office. And while there is some merit in talking about the judicial process, the impeachment process is the one that will bring him before the bar of justice. Now, keep in mind, none of this existed when Al Green was pushing for impeachment prior to Inauguration Day earlier that year. This is all new. This is a new layer. So the former United States Attorney Preet Bharara, said in June 11th interview with NBC News that there is absolutely evidence to begin a case regarding obstruction of justice by Trump. Bharara went on to note, no one knows right now whether there is a provable case of obstruction, but there's no basis to say there's no obstruction. You get that? Nobody can say it's a winnable case or that there's actually proof of it, but there's no basis to say that there wasn't any. So, on June 14th, the Washington Post reported that Trump was being investigated by special counsel Robert Mueller for possible obstruction of justice relating to his actions in regard to the investigation into Russia. This is all June of 2017. July of 2017. On the 12th, Congressman Sherman formally introduced to the House the House of Representatives an article for impeachment, H.R. Res. 438, accusing the president of obstructing and impeding the investigation of justice regarding the investigation of Russian interference in the 2016 presidential election. And Democrats in the House Judiciary Committee demanded that hearings begin as soon as possible, but the Republicans demurred, rewriting the request in favor of investigations also into Hillary Clinton's emails. That's up to July of 2017, and we're out of time. So we're going to pick up this timeline tomorrow. I think this is very important stuff. So are you getting a picture of what's leading up to impeachment? It's not that they believe the president did something wrong 2 weeks ago, and according to the whistleblower, it's that they've been building a case to remove him from office and delegitimize his presidency since before he even took office. And we'll pick this up tomorrow. We're going to go out on a 23-hour break, and we'll be back tomorrow. Folks, thanks for being here.